On September 3rd, the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II, leader of the Chinese Communist Party, Xi Jinping, made a speech that caused a stir on the Chinese internet. Xi spoke about 5 things that Chinese people will never agree to, which ignited uproar among netizens who believed Xi had no right to speak on behalf of the Chinese populace. Meanwhile, some China commentators analyzed that Xi was sending a subtle message to the international community about the growing criticism of the Chinese regime. At an event commemorating the anniversary, Xi said the Chinese people will never agree to any attempt by anyone or any force to distort the history of the Communist Party of China and vilified the nature and purpose of the Communist Party of China. On Sina Weibo, a social media platform similar to Twitter, Chinese netizens said they were never solicited for their opinions. Thus, Xi had no right to represent them. One user posted, "I'm being represented without consent again." Others commented that Chinese people would not dare to disagree with the party, given its tendency to crack down on dissent. One user commented, "If they do not agree, they may be charged with the crime of provoking trouble." This vaguely defined charge is often used against human rights lawyers and dissidents. Some Chinese based outside China also weighed in on Twitter. One user posted in Chinese, "This is holding the Chinese people hostage again." Playing off Xi's words, he lamented the lack of freedoms in China. If you want freedom of speech, the CCP, will never agree. If you want historical truth, it will never agree. If you want to have general elections, it will never agree. If you want true democracy, it will never agree. If you want the CCP to step down, it will never agree. Xi also said, the Chinese people will never agree to any attempt by anyone or any force to separate the Communist Party of China from the Chinese people and antagonize them. According to China Affairs commentator Tian Yun, this is an indirect response to U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's recent speech. On July 23rd, in a major policy speech calling on governments to unite in defending against Beijing's threats, Pompeo said,
"We must also engage and empower the Chinese people, a dynamic, freedom-loving people who are completely distinct from the Chinese Communist Party."
Following his speech, state-run media Xinhua published a 30,000-word long article attacking Pompeo. This shows that Pompeo's words hit home and caused fear in the CCP. Tian Yun said in a news analysis published on the Chinese-language Epoch Times, adding that Xi's recent rhetoric appeared to be a reaction to Pompeo's words. Xi also said, the Chinese people will never agree to anyone or any force who attempts to impose their will on China, through bullying, change the direction of China's progress, and obstruct the efforts of the Chinese people to create their own beautiful life. Tian wrote that this statement was a deliberate distortion of the United States' recent countermeasures against the Chinese regime's aggression by painting the United States' actions as hostility toward the Chinese people. He added that Xi's words were also a warning to foreign governments that Beijing would play by its rules and that they should accept that reality.
The U.S. Embassy in China has announced that Ambassador Terry Branstad will retire and leave Beijing early next month. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo wrote on Twitter, "I thank Ambassador Terry Branstad for his more than 3 years of service to the American people as U.S. Ambassador to the People's Republic of China. Ambassador Branstad has contributed to rebalancing U.S.-China relations so that it is results-oriented, reciprocal, and fair." Branstad, aged 73, is a former governor of Iowa. He first forged ties with President Xi Jinping several decades ago when Xi visited Iowa. Last week, Branstad tried to publish an article in China's People's Daily titled, "Resetting the Relationship Based on Reciprocity." He wrote, while U.S. journalists face restrictions on reporting and even entering China, Chinese state media workers have long enjoyed open access in the United States. The People's Daily refused to publish it. Pompeo said it shows how much the Chinese regime fears their own people's free thinking and the free world's judgment about their governing practices inside China. Pompeo said Branstad's contributions will have lasting positive effects on U.S. foreign policy for decades to come.
According to reports from a global media consortium that accessed an early copy of the database, a Chinese company with reported links to Beijing's military and intelligence arm has amassed the personal details of thousands of Canadians as part of a giant global database targeting influential figures and their families. The company, Zhenhua Data, is tied to the People's Liberation Army, the Ministry of State Security, and the Chinese Communist Party, and has collated the profiles of 2.4 million people across the world. According to reports from the global media consortium titled the Overseas Key Individuals Database, includes personal information on at least 5,000 Canadians. The database includes prominent people in various sectors: politics, business, law, academia, and defense, and lists details such as their birth dates, addresses, marital statuses, and political leanings. According to analysis by the Globe and Mail, influential Canadians include dozens of current and former MPs, including Conservative leader Erin O'Toole, mayors of several Western Canadian towns, and current and former members of the Supreme Court of Canada. Senior bureaucrats at the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, the Treasury Board, the Transportation Safety Board, the Export Development Canada, and the Office of the Privacy Commissioner were also listed. In addition, the database includes family members of prominent Canadians such as Justin Trudeau's 11-year-old daughter Ella Grace Trudeau and Jeremy Fry, the son of long-serving BC Liberal MP Hedy Fry. According to the Globe's analysis, the database contains nearly 16,000 entries mentioning Canada. Among a shortlist of 3,767 Canadians, the creators assigned a grade to the individuals of either 1, 2, or 3. The newspaper reported those assigned a 1 appeared to be people of direct influence, such as mayors, MPs, or senior civil servants, while those assigned a 2 were often relatives of people in power, such as Mr. Trudeau's daughter and Miss Fry's son. Those assigned a grade of 3 often had criminal convictions, mostly for economic crimes. Bank records, job applications, and psychological profiles were also included in the data, much of which was taken from information in the public domain, including news articles, criminal records, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok. The database was leaked by an anonymous employee of Zhenhua Data and discovered by Professor Chris Balding, who worked at Peking University until 2018 when he fled to Vietnam over safety concerns. In a previous statement, Balding said the CCP presents an unprecedented challenge to open, freedom-loving rule of law states around the world. He wrote, "Constructing a techno-surveillance security state that gives the Communist Party powerful means to control citizens domestically. We now have evidence of how Chinese firms partner with state agencies to monitor individuals and institutions globally."
At the end of August, 12 Hong Kongers were arrested by the CCP's maritime police while trying to flee to Taiwan by sea. They were detained secretly for more than 20 days. On September 13th, the Yantian branch of the Shenzhen Municipal Public Security Bureau announced that the 12 people had been under criminal detention on suspicion of illegally crossing the border. These 12 people, including Hong Kong Story member Li Yushen and other Hong Kong youths who had participated in the anti-extradition movement, were intercepted by the Guangdong Coast Guard on their way to Taiwan on August 23rd and detained in the Shenzhen Yantian Detention Center.
These 12 citizens were arrested by the Mainland Maritime Police on the high seas. According to international law, no one has the right to arrest people on the high seas. Their arrest is illegal. You should not stop your citizens from leaving the country. Furthermore, even if these 12 people have broken the law, they should be transferred to the Hong Kong Judicial Department for further investigation, since they hold Hong Kong passports, rather than detained in Shenzhen for more than 20 days.
On the same day, the spokesperson of the CCP's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Hua Chunying, posted on Twitter and claimed that they are not democratic activists, but elements attempting to separate Hong Kong from China.
These people have not gone through any court trial, but you labeled them and said that they were trying to separate Hong Kong from China. What is your basis? You just gave them a political label without any legal basis. The CCP just wants to apply what it has been doing in mainland China to show its dictatorship authority.
Hong Kong Alliance Secretary and Standing Committee Tsai Yao-chang also told NTD TV that the Chinese Foreign Affairs Department should not arbitrarily label any Hong Kong people.
First of all, don't look at how they are labeled. The most important thing is that they are Hong Kong people and also Chinese citizens. The basic human rights should be protected, which I think is the most important. The spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China has no basis to publicly say that these 12 people are Hong Kong independence elements, especially since there is no evidence. They have no case in this regard, so labeling them is completely wrong.
The day before, family members of the 12 detained Hong Kong citizens held a press conference with Hong Kong Legislative Council members Zhu Kaidi, Tu Jinshen, and others. They said that 12 people, including several minors, are still being secretly detained by the CCP and there's no way to contact them. Many mainland lawyers who were entrusted by their families to represent the case have still not been able to meet with the litigants. The lawyers were even required to withdraw from the cases by the CCP National Security Agency. Family members cried at the press conference. They were very worried that their family members detained by the CCP's police would be tortured or treated inhumanely. At the same time, they also tried to seek help from the Hong Kong government, but the relevant departments were not responding, shirking their responsibilities. The family members laid out 4 demands: dismiss CCP government-assigned representatives and allow their appointed lawyers to meet them, allow family members in Hong Kong to speak to detainees, arrange medication to detainees in need, and request the Hong Kong government ensure the human rights of detainees and immediately transfer these 12 people back to Hong Kong.
The main problem is that the police prevent his family from meeting them, and the CCP doesn't allow the lawyers hired by their families to see them either. This is the biggest problem. While detained by the Chinese police, the legal protection for them and their families is obviously insufficient. Although the police also said that their rights are protected, no one, including their family members or lawyers, has been able to see them. Their rights are protected is obviously a very suspicious statement.
On September 11th, the U.S. Secretary of State Pompeo stated that the United States is deeply disturbed that Hong Kong democracy activists, arrested 2 weeks ago, have been denied access to lawyers of their choice. We hope Chief Executive Lam's stated commitment to protecting the rights of Hong Kong residents is more than just words.